This is my story on how I went from 120 euros to 3.5 million euros in the last 5 years. My name is Dylan Hay, and you're probably wondering, who on earth is this guy? Is he going to sell me a course or what's going on? But I promise you, I'm not going to sell you a course. I'm just another regular guy trying to inspire other business owners and show you that anyone can do this. That's why I'm making this video, to share my full journey on going from 120 euros to 3.5 million euros in revenue in the last 5 years. Now, please keep in mind, it wasn't always this way. I come from pretty humble beginnings, actually. So I grew up in the UK. My parents both got divorced when I was pretty young. And so I was raised by a single mother who had no money, yet always found a way to put me first. We moved around pretty often, and never once at that time in my life did I think I would be where I am today. So that was my starting point to now where I'm 28 years old, living here in Tallinn, Estonia. I have my dream car. I just bought my Porsche 718 Cayman GTS this summer. I have the most amazing wife and business partner in Celia. We just had a fantastic wedding, and I'm in a position where I've built Hey Digital into a 1.5 million ARR business with a team from 15 different countries who run this essentially without the need for my input. We won Estonia's second fastest growing company in 2022, and using the cash we've been able to build up over the last few years, we were able to acquire and relaunch our SaaS company Posttrips. I'm also, alongside all of this, able to financially support and give back to my mum and to my family, which is something that's super important for me. So in this video, I'm going to highlight some of the key points throughout my story, as well as give you an overview of how I got to this point. And the goal of this isn't to show off, because if anything, I actually feel a little bit uncomfortable recording a video like this, but I do want to inspire any of you watching this video to highlight what is possible when you put your mind to things and when you really work hard and push yourself. So let's begin with my early life. So like I said in the intro, my parents both divorced when I was pretty young, so I ended up moving around a fair amount. Actually, when I was in school, when I was maybe 8-9 years old, I was bullied pretty badly. And I want to share a story about this because this will come back later on. So I was at school, I was being bullied, and the kid that was bullying me, my mum at the time decided it would be a great idea to talk to his mum and let her know what was going on and try and work together to make us almost like friends, or arrange that we spend some time together in the vain hope or idea or goal that this would end the bullying, end the misery for me, for my mum, for everybody else. This kid that was bullying me, he did taekwondo, a few other martial arts like this, and so our parents agreed to take us to a taekwondo class together. And this is a huge pivotal point in my story, because later on, as you'll hear, I ended up taking taekwondo, taking kickboxing pretty seriously. So I ended up competing for the English national team in taekwondo throughout my teenage years. I competed at a pretty high level. I won medals at world championships, European championships, and was able to travel to countries like Estonia, actually, to Belarus, to Italy, to Croatia, like Slovenia, a bunch of places like this, competing for the English national team and winning medals at these competitions as well. This was a huge part of my teenage years, and to be honest, even earlier than teenage years growing up. And so I think back to that day when my mum and this other kid's parent decided to try this out, and although it didn't help the situation at the time, it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me in my life. But when I think back to my times competing, taekwondo, kickboxing, some of these other things, I was so proud and so happy to be able to compete at such a high level, but also faced a bunch of struggles and challenges with this, because my mum raised me by herself. We didn't have any money whatsoever, to be honest. And once I was selected for the English national team, I couldn't even afford to compete in these competitions. And so there was a moment in time where I thought, hey, I've been selected for a national team, but I'm not even going to be able to attend. And this was pretty difficult. At the time, taekwondo wasn't like Olympic sport. It wasn't funded. So we had to raise money for me to travel and to compete through like fundraising campaigns, through approaching and trying to land a few sponsors. I had like Mars Chocolate, for example, sponsor me and give me a grant, and a bunch of other things like this. So even from a young age, I was put into the world of having to make money and raise money to fuel my ambitions and my dreams. And so this was really challenging for me as a teenager, as a kid, watching my mum put everything for me first, while still not having the funds or the resources to be able to do that. And that's gone on to be like a huge motivator for me throughout my life to do better for myself and for my family, so that I can give back and support my family for everything that they did for me when I was younger. But if we move on a little bit, so competing at such a high level in sport, I truly believe when you look at business people, sales people, anything like this, if you've competed in a high level at sport, you understand what it takes to make it in this area. You tend to transition pretty well into business as well. And some of the lessons I learned throughout that time time still support me today, and much of that was through the mindset of what high level competition looks like. One of the things that I learned was through working with a sports psychologist. He helped me truly understand the power and the importance of your mind, whether it's in business, in sport, in anything else. If you work just as hard or harder than everybody else, but your mindset is not in a good spot, you have no chance of overachieving or winning anything. And working with a sports psychologist took me from being a competitor on a national level to an international stage and winning medals at world championships and European championships. And so this is a huge key part of my early life. And I remember even going to award ceremonies like in the area where I lived. I even won, I think it was like Young Male Athlete of the Year one time or something when I was a teenager, but feeling so out of place in those award ceremonies. I was up against people who were like Formula 3 drivers and had a lot of money and things like this. And I remember being in that room wanting to never feel this way like ever again. I didn't want to feel out of place because of a lack of financial resources. So this is what really motivated me to push myself hard. And so I always had this like entrepreneurial mindset. When I was a teenager even, I tried so many different things, from buying and selling like fake sunglasses, like fake Ray-Bans online, to leaving school when I was 16 years old, like my first real job. I knew that I didn't want to follow everybody else and finish sixth form and go to university. And I got a job working as a painter decorator. And I remember at the time knowing this wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And my parents being like pretty upset with me for making this decision too, because they thought I was able to do so much more than painting and decorating. But that decision was something that I'm so happy and proud of doing. And at this point I was earning like £250 cash in hand every single week. And I remember being 16 thinking I was like balling out at this point. I was decorating very high-end houses though in the UK, so in a place called Ascot and near Wentworth Golf Course. So I was working on the houses of like multimillionaires, and I remember every day seeing their like cigar rooms and wine cellars and cinema rooms and nice cars in the driveway, remembering that, hey, I would love to get to a point like this, and I knew I was going to get to a point like this. I just didn't know at the time how I was going to get there. So after a year or so of doing this decorating job, I got my first job in sales. I was making £14,000 a year. And I remember at this point thinking that I was absolutely crushing it again, right? So I worked for maybe 4 or 5 years in sales, progressing from this 14K a year salary, then into recruitment where I was getting maybe 22 when I think I started. And then I got a job in a bigger recruitment company. I worked there for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. I think at this point my base salary would have been like 25K or something. And these jobs really taught me the importance of just showing up every single day, putting in the reps, going hard. I would work from 7:38 in the morning through to 9-10 p.m. at night. I would make 300 phone calls every single day. I would get rejected all day long, but there would be 2 or 3 good calls that would end up making you money, right? And so this sales experience, as well as my experience in competing in international sports, I think has given me this drive and this understanding that it doesn't matter how many rejections you get or how difficult things are. If you just keep showing up consistently and focus on smart effort and smart outputs, you will succeed. I worked in sales, I worked in recruitment for a few years, and then I moved to London and I got a job in tech sales for Hootsuite. I can't remember my salary at this point, but I was maybe making like 45K, something like this. Worked there for a while, and then I took my first ever job working remotely for a SaaS company called Leadfeeder. So we grew from a team of like 14, 15 people to 50, 55 in the first year. I remember visiting Helsinki when I first started this job to meet the team, and then after this working remotely from London and traveling around the world for a year and a half as a digital nomad as well. And this was when I first started to get the taste of a little bit more money, a bit more responsibility, but also the value and the importance of building your own personal brand, of building potentially a business. And at this point was when I started to get my true like entrepreneurship itch. So I remember when I was working at Leadfeeder starting to watch these Gary Vee videos, and that was the first time when I was like, maybe I could do this myself. So me and my now wife Celia, we started like buying and selling books, board games, all kinds of random shit like this. And I have some like really funny stories around this, but it was going pretty well. We were making maybe an extra, I don't know, £400 or £500 a month with little effort, and starting to think, maybe there's something here. Maybe we can do something with this, right? But I had a big failure too. So there was this one time when I bought 1,000 books. I didn't look at them. I bought them completely blind. They were just in these huge sacks. Brought them back to my tiny London apartment. I was hoping to sell them all on Amazon FBA, but it turned out they were all complete trash, not worth anything. And I remember sitting here thinking, what on earth am I going to do? My house or my apartment is full of 1,000 books and I have nowhere to put them and they're worthless. And I remember this is when my action kicked in, and I contacted the person I bought the books from, asked them if there was any other people interested in the books, and they said there was. They gave me their phone numbers, I called them, and I resold the books to those people within 2 or 3 days. So this was like my first failure at entrepreneurship, but also first micro win in realizing that, hey, if you take action quickly, you can figure these things out. And so time progressed a little bit. I was trying to continue my work with Leadfeeder whilst also building my personal brand on LinkedIn, on YouTube. So we were digital nomading for a while, working for Leadfeeder, and one day I realized, hey, look, I can do this by myself. I saw a gap in the market for performance marketing services for SaaS companies. At Leadfeeder, we needed this. A bunch of other SaaS companies needed this. People were asking me if I provided this service, and at the time I didn't. So I took the risk. I set up Hey Digital around about 4.5, 5 years ago now, I guess. And the first years of this were really tough. I didn't really make any money for the first couple of years. I was just breaking even. I had maybe 1 or 2 clients, and I was posting YouTube videos talking about how to build and grow an agency and how to build a personal brand so that I could land a couple of consulting clients to help me financially get by every single month. So this is a huge full circle moment for me, because I then ended up having a little bit of a challenge with my ego where I realized, hey, why am I doing YouTube videos teaching people this stuff if I haven't done it myself? So I decided to work hard for 4 or 5 years, build this business, build this agency, and then come back and help all of you do the same thing. So yeah, first couple of years were pretty tough, but then we moved to Estonia and decided, okay, now is the time, let's go all in, all focus on Hey Digital. And that's when Celia, my now wife, joined me as co-founder on the business. And that's when things really started to move. And the business finally started seeing some success and growing in 2021, I would say. And we went from making like a few €1,000s a month to 20,000 a month, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way up to where we are now of like over 130K every single month. And so we were making money, we were feeling great, but we were also feeling very tired, very overworked. We were spending so much time in the business, not on the business. At this point, we realized we needed to improve our operations, our systems, and the team that we had in place. And with the free cash that I had available, we focused on like growing the business, building the team, and working with SaaS companies. We also had a bunch of challenges because, as all of you know, there are a few things that happened in the world over the last few years. We'll just leave it at that. And SaaS businesses were hit super hard, making a bunch of layoffs. And at one point in 2021, I think it was, we lost 50% of our revenue, all within a 3-week time period. This was a huge challenge for us as a business, but we managed to bring this back to rebuild within a month and replace all of this revenue without having to let anyone from the team go. So we've been through a bunch of challenges, but also a bunch of wins with Hey Digital, winning Estonia's second fastest growing company of the year, for example, and today being in a position where Celia, my wife, is no longer working day to day in Hey Digital, and I am also not too hands-on involved aside from the sales, marketing, and then managing my team leads. Last year, unfortunately, I had a very challenging personal experience. I lost my dad. He was competing in an Ironman triathlon and passed away in the middle of the race. And at this point, nothing else mattered to me, and I could barely think or function. I didn't work for 6 months. I didn't do anything. I was a shadow of myself. But fortunately, because of the team and the systems and the processes that we have, Hey Digital was able to continue ticking over and supporting us in the background. But this really reshaped how I think about things, about what's important, what isn't. And since then, I've been so focused on building a fantastic business that doesn't need me or Celia, my co-founder, as much in the day-to-day operations, that can run not only without us, but succeed without us. And we've been able to do that through a lot of hard work. This year, we were able to have our dream wedding with like 75 guests from all around the world over 4 days. We bought a SaaS company this year. I bought my dream car, my Porsche. And to be honest, it feels like we are truly just getting started. And that's one of the reasons I was unsure about making this video, because although I'm very appreciative and grateful of all the success I've had so far, I truly know and believe that this is just the beginning. That's my story of how I went from €120 to €3.5 million in the last 4 or 5 years. And I really do hope that this story inspires some of you to take action, no matter what your circumstances are, and to make the most of it, because you will come out on top if you put the work in. I truly believe this, and I can promise this. If you run your own agency and you want to learn how we've done this, how we transformed Hey Digital from 20K a month month to 1.3, 1.4 million ARR and became Estonia's second fastest growing company whilst being able to step away from daily operations through systems and processes. We've just put together this huge doc of 50 plus pages highlighting our exact framework, and we're giving this away completely for free. We're also going to be accepting a few one-to-one consulting clients right now, so if you do need help, make sure to check out that doc and book in a call. You can find it linked beneath this video. And also, before you leave, YouTube thinks you should probably watch this next video, so let's go ahead and see if they're right.